Hello friends, this is Nancy from Astrology and Angel Mediums today with a slightly different video than what I've been doing. I'm going to call this a response video, so to speak, even though it wasn't anything that was directed towards me, but I saw a video yesterday from another practitioner on here talking about show me how you practice. Or show me your practice or something like that. I'll have to really define what it was, and then I'll add it into the description. But one of the things that she mentioned was that while she appreciates deck unboxings and deck reviews and things like that, she wants to see how people are proactively using their decks in their practice. So the main thing that I wanted to kind of cover, because the very first thing that I thought about was how I use these two specific decks. And I've talked about them in my Decks That I Love series, and also have done a deck review and unboxing, I think, on both of these decks. So while I understand that not everyone wants to see a deck unboxing or hear about a deck review, I do enjoy those sort of videos. So I think it's interesting to see other people's perspectives and what they enjoy or love about a specific deck. So as you may be able to understand, I use these two decks in my ancestral practice. And so the reason why I have chosen to use these two decks specifically is that I feel that both of these work very well in my ancestral practice. Now, the two books that I really, really recommend if this is something that you're wanting to do are the Ancestral Tarot and Ancestral Grimoire books, both by Nancy Hendrickson. They are fantastic. It's almost like a step-by-step guide. So if that is something that you're looking into getting into, or have kind of struggled to understand how one would use a tarot deck for their ancestral practice, it can really help guide you. It can give you a little bit of a starting off point, as well as suggestions and things like that. Now, the Ancestral Grimoire is one that I really have absolutely loved. And I have cards in here too, because there's a monthly practice that you can do for a year of ancestral veneration and use it as a guide through your ancestral grimoire practice. But then there's also other things that you can kind of use in order to connect deeper to your actual deck. And I just have really enjoyed this practice and adding it into something that I do pretty regularly. While I haven't completed the year, even though I've had this book for, I think, a couple years now, just due to life and things like that, I just haven't had a chance to. But for me, one of my children bought me this book and I just thought it was beautiful. And I was like, oh, that'll be perfect. And I went with the colors. I was like, oh, I guess this is what this is for. And since if anyone that follows astrology or is into astrology understands that the moon represents the mother or nurturing your roots and things like that. And it has a little girl kind of capturing the moon, right? So to me, it was very oh, this needs to be my thing. I kind of added some of my artwork into it. This is actually my family. So I'm Mexican. My family's from Mexico. And these are my grandparents from my maternal side and my grandparents from my paternal side. And I was born here in the US, so I'm Mexican American, and I wanted to kind of add different things. Now, what I do love about the ancestral practice and having the grimoire to kind of guide you is that you can kind of write your things. And then there's spreads that you can kind of use with different questions and things like that to kind of help guide you through different things. And I just think it's great because it kind of lets you connect to your deck in a very unique way. And for me, I feel because I started this practice and started using these decks, that they work very well whenever I feel a little bit lost or when I'm trying to do some ancestral work. So there's spirit guide messages, teamwork, spreads, things like that. So I had kind of put my ancestral thing here. And because of my history, where I didn't know who my father was until very, very recently. When I started this, I still didn't know very much about him. I didn't really have confirmation. And at I think in March of this year, I finally got confirmation about who it was, and I was able to connect with his surrounding family, and I found out that I had other siblings. So it's been a little bit of a journey for me. So it's been very interesting because now I feel like since I have some information, I need to kind of change up what I have here, because this was just based off of like what I understood and what I knew. And I was raised by my mother in the US. My father, he lived in Mexico before he passed away, and he was born and raised there. So it's just very interesting because I have all of these things that I did without having a true understanding about my familial history and things like that. So it's been very interesting because it allows you to understand like your fears, your family patterns, things like that. You know, if healing can't happen, your inner child healing spread. And then I kind of use it as like a little junk journal almost. I like to kind of do different things in here to kind of add my own art. There's spreads for healing generational patterns, breaking addictions. As someone that has suffered with addiction, that is something that was important to me. There's ancient ones spread, you know, saying goodbye and thank you. There's, you know, how to kind of venerate different people that maybe have been in your life. And so I have really enjoyed this practice. And while I haven't really prioritized it the last couple of months, just due to the busyness of my day-to-day life, I want to be able to make some more informed things. Now that I have more information, I have a better understanding of who my father was and things like that. So I think it's interesting, especially if you're into past life stuff, which I do think is a very significant portion and part of a spiritual practice, is understanding, if you believe in past lives, how those things may affect you and what your soul's trying to do this lifetime, as well as maybe things that you need to kind of work through, or maybe some signatures in your soul that like you want to kind of move on from. And so it's interesting because I always assumed my father, and I don't know, it's like I'm a psychic or something. I always felt like he had King of Cups energy. So I've always associated the King of Cups card as my father. And so it's very interesting because as I was kind of like learning more about him and things like that, and I was like, oh my gosh, like he literally was the King of Cups. So I just think it's very interesting because you can kind of connect to different decks. I use other decks as well. I use the Ancient Feminine Wisdom Oracle deck with this Which Goddess Am I? And again, I like to do little artwork in it. So if you're like, what is this random stuff? And it's also a way of me connecting in different ways and kind of connecting more to how I grew up and what I love. And so it's also helped me a lot on my healing journey, as I don't have a very good relationship with my mother, and finding out that my father passed away, as well as other members of my family that have passed away, my best friend that passed away. I like to have these little memories of her, because even though she may not be an ancestor to me, I feel like she's an ancestor in the sense of someone that was here at the same time and place as me. And it's really given me an opportunity to kind of journal about how I feel as a mother, what my relationship is, things like that when I found out about my father. So here's some pictures of him and things like that. And then also of my grandmother, who has also passed away, finding out things about my ancestral kind of roots and things like that. And also just kind of moving a little bit more. I had purchased a deck specifically to connect with my best friend, which is the Muse Tarot. And I did a little spread just to kind of connect with her a little bit more. And it's just been very nice. And as I kind of went along, I started sticking little things in here and kind of like finding some fun pictures to kind of add. And I really do hope to reprioritize using these two decks for my ancestral practice. So while this isn't like a show me how you practice, I can kind of show you a little bit of why I have loved using these two decks. I think because the artwork is so fun. It is a tarot deck. It is something that I feel can kind of give me a little bit more nuance and depth to my readings or to how I connect into my Ancestral Grimoire. It's why I lean more into using that deck more often. And this being an Oracle deck adds a little bit of flair, even though I will admit it's not one that I reach for all of the time. I'm still kind of figuring out the groove for this deck specifically, but it does have very similar artwork that goes very well and other messages that may be helpful. I think that this would be fun for me to do the diving into their personalities, which I never completed because I felt like it was hard for me to understand because my only living relative that I have a direct connection to is my mother. And so she's the only person I could really confirm as to what her actual personality is, right? And what attributes does she actually exhibit versus other ones that I'm like, wow, I don't even have like can I check in? Is this like true to like what I feel is coming up for this person? And now that I've had some names and pictures and things like that, it's been so interesting to me because I see so much of myself in my paternal family versus my maternal family. I've always felt like I didn't fit in with my maternal family for various reasons. It could be the cultural differences, as my mom is an immigrant that came here when she was actually expecting me. And so I was raised here in a completely different country, different tongue, different aspects and elements that kind of contribute to my learned experience as a person. Versus if I would have been raised in Mexico with all of the family that I have there, I think that I would be a very different person in so many different ways. And it's just been very interesting because I'm now in my 40s and it's been such an interesting experience for me personally to see the growth, to see the changes, to see the things that have been shifting within myself as I have this new understanding. And I'm not going to lie, there's been a little bit of grief that's come up with knowing and having some answers. And I don't think that I would have taken everything as well as I have if it wouldn't have been for me starting this ancestral practice a couple of years ago. So I could kind of prepare and deal with a lot of the things. So now, because I have this connection and I have a way of accessing more easily these energies, I feel like it's very healing. And I also feel like there's a lot more confirmation, there's a lot more connection, there's a lot more like purpose and direction as to what it is that I want to do with my ancestral practice. So while I have not been as consistent with it this year, I do know that as I understand more of my father's family, as I learn more about who my grandparents were, my siblings and things like that are still living, and as well as some of my living relatives, to help me confirm some information about who my father was, I can rest easy as I kind of connect a little bit more. So it's just very interesting. So that is one of the things that I use in my practice. And I don't know, do you guys do ancestral work? Is that something that you're interested in learning more about? Is it a practice that you've ever utilized? Is that how you have thought to use tarot? Or tell me a little bit about your family if that's something that you want to share on here. I can always talk a little bit more about why I felt drawn to doing more of this ancestral practice. Because for me personally, not knowing so much about myself growing up and only having one side of me to connect to or to compare to is really what it was. It really made me feel like there's been a lot of puzzle pieces that weren't fitting into the whole picture. And now in my 40s, several decades after of me diving into this practice and trying to learn about myself and figure myself out, I've learned so much about the people that, you know, made me, that contributed to my soul's purpose, that contributed to my bloodline, that, you know, hopefully feel that I am being respectful and mindful and venerating them in a way that honors who they were while they were living, and then also honors their energy now in the afterlife. So I hope that makes sense. Let me know what you guys think about these kind of videos. I'll see what else I can kind of share on here. Again, I'm a little hesitant to kind of show myself on videos. So let me know if it's okay to do it like this way. I'm still new-ish to YouTube and in using it regularly, but I'm not new to practices and different things like that. So I hope this makes sense. Let me know what you guys think about this video. Have a good one. Take care. Stay safe. And as always, make good choices. Bye.